Steam is going crazy with discounts once again, and right now there are some genuinely amazing games dropping to ridiculously low prices. We're talking huge RPGs, chaotic open world games, underrated hidden gems, deep strategy titles, co-op experiences you can play with friends, and even a few games you can permanently add to your library for zero cost if you're quick enough. And the best part is, these aren't random cheap games nobody cares about. These are titles that are actually worth your time, especially at discounts like 90% and even 95% off. So today I've put together another fresh list of some of the best Steam deals you definitely shouldn't miss right now. Right at the start, Deus Ex Mankind Divided is sitting at 90% off, and this is one of those games that feels way more underrated than it deserves to be. If you enjoy immersive RPGs where your choices actually matter, this is a really strong pick. The game throws you into a cyberpunk world full of conspiracies, advanced technology, and different ways to approach almost every situation. You can go full stealth, avoid enemies completely, hack security systems, or turn yourself into a walking tank and fight your way through everything. That freedom is what makes it so satisfying, because it actually feels like your playstyle matters. The atmosphere is also fantastic, with detailed futuristic cities that still look incredibly good today. And next, Saints Row, the third remastered at 90% off, and this is still one of the most fun open world games if you just want pure chaos. This game does not take itself seriously for even a second, and honestly, that's exactly why people love it. Ridiculous missions, over-the-top weapons, absurd humor, and complete freedom to mess around however you want. One minute you're doing something that almost feels normal, and the next you're causing total destruction with the most ridiculous weapons imaginable. The remastered version also looks noticeably better, making this an easy recommendation at this price. Up next, Chorus at 90% off, and this one is honestly a hidden gem if you enjoy space combat games. You're flying through beautiful environments in a powerful ship, taking part in fast-paced battles while uncovering a pretty interesting story. What makes the gameplay stand out is how smooth and satisfying flying feels. Combat becomes incredibly fast once you unlock more abilities, and there are moments where it almost feels like an action movie happening in space. If you enjoy sci-fi games but want something a little different, this is definitely worth checking out. And next, Jalopy at 90% off, and this is one of the most unique road trip games you'll probably ever play. The entire experience revolves around traveling across Eastern Europe in an old, barely functioning car that constantly breaks down. You're managing fuel, fixing parts, packing supplies, and trying to survive the journey while dealing with random situations along the way. There's something weirdly relaxing about it, even when everything is going wrong. It feels much more personal than most driving games because the car almost becomes its own character. And next, Mind Scanners at 94% off, and this one is definitely something different. You're basically acting as a futuristic psychologist in a strange dystopian world, diagnosing people and using weird machines to treat their minds. But the interesting part is that the game constantly makes you question morality and the system you're working for. It feels a bit like Papers, please mixed with psychological storytelling, and if you enjoy games that make you think, this is a really interesting pick. Up next, The Last Campfire at 90% off, and this is one of those calm, story-driven games that feels surprisingly emotional the longer you play. You're exploring a quiet world filled with lost souls, solving environmental puzzles, and helping characters move forward on their journey. The art style is beautiful, the music is incredibly relaxing, and the overall atmosphere makes it the kind of game you can just sit back and enjoy after a long day. It's not super long, but it's one of those experiences that quietly stays with you once it's over. Up next, Mordheim, City of the Damned at 90% off, and if you enjoy tactical games that actually punish mistakes, this one is definitely worth a look. It's set in the Warhammer universe and focuses on brutal turn-based combat where every decision matters. You're managing your own warband, upgrading fighters, gathering loot, and trying to survive dangerous missions in a ruined city filled with enemies. What makes it interesting is that injuries and losses can actually stay with your characters, which adds a lot more tension to every fight. And next, Far Lone Sails at 90% off, and this is one of the most atmospheric indie games on the list. You're traveling across a lonely, abandoned world in a strange vehicle that feels part ship, part machine, and the whole experience is built around movement, discovery, and atmosphere. There's very little dialogue, but the game still manages to tell a story through the world itself. It's relaxing, emotional, and one of those games that feels almost meditative at times. Up next, In Sound Mind at 90% off, and this is a horror game that deserves way more attention than it gets. Instead of relying only on cheap scares, it mixes psychological horror with puzzles and story storytelling in a really smart way. Each section of the game dives into different memories and fears, which keeps things feeling fresh instead of repetitive. There are definitely creepy moments, but what really makes it memorable is how strange and unpredictable everything feels. If you enjoy horror games with a strong story, this is a very easy recommendation. And next, Divinity Original Sin at 90% off, and if you enjoy RPGs, this is honestly one of the strongest deals here. This is the kind of game where player choice really matters, and almost every situation can be solved in multiple ways. Combat is deep and tactical, dialogue choices actually matter, and the world gives you an incredible amount of freedom to experiment. You can play solo or in co-op, and honestly, this is one of those RPGs where you constantly discover new things even after hours of playing. At 90% off, it's kind of hard to ignore. And next, Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, both at 90% off. And if you enjoy story-driven games where your choices actually shape what happens, these are absolutely worth checking out. Both games feel more like interactive thrillers than traditional games, where every decision can completely change relationships, events, and even endings. Heavy Rain focuses on a dark crime story filled with mystery and tension, while Beyond Two Souls leans more into supernatural themes and emotional storytelling. They're slower-paced experiences, but if you enjoy games that feel cinematic and story-focused, these are really easy recommendations at this price. Up next, Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr Definitive Edition at 90% off, and this is a really solid pick if you enjoy action RPGs like Diablo but want something darker and heavier. You're taking missions across different planets, fighting huge numbers of enemies, upgrading gear, and building your character however you want. The combat feels impactful, especially once you unlock stronger abilities, and the Warhammer setting gives everything a darker, more brutal atmosphere. The Definitive Edition also includes a lot of extra content, so there's a huge amount to do here. And next, Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Daemonhunters at 90% off, and this is a completely different kind of Warhammer experience. Instead of action combat, this one focuses on tactical turn-based strategy, where every move matters and bad decisions can cost you hard. You're controlling elite soldiers against powerful enemies, upgrading your squad, and carefully planning battles step by step. If you enjoy games like XCOM, where positioning and tactics are everything, this is absolutely worth checking out. Up next, Warhammer 40,000 Gladius Relics of War at 100% off until May 28th, and this is easily one of those deals you don't want to skip, because once you claim it, it's yours to keep permanently. This is a strategy game set in the Warhammer 40k universe, where different factions fight for control while expanding territory, researching technology, and building armies. It has that classic just one more turn feeling that can easily keep you playing way longer than planned. Even if you're not a huge strategy fan, it's hard to complain when you can add it to your library for free forever. And next, Bunny Guys at 100% off until May 29th, and again, once you claim it, it stays in your library permanently. This one goes for a much lighter and more chaotic multiplayer vibe with fast matches and simple gameplay that's easy to jump into. It's clearly designed more for quick fun rather than something super serious, but those kinds of games can actually be surprisingly entertaining with friends. And next, Car Mechanic Simulator 2018 at 100% off until May 27th, and this is honestly one of those games that sounds boring until you actually try it. You're repairing, restoring, and upgrading cars piece by piece, figuring out what's broken, replacing parts, and bringing vehicles back to life. It's weirdly satisfying, especially if you enjoy progression-focused games where you slowly improve over time. Even people who aren't huge car fans end up getting addicted to it, so definitely worth claiming while it's available. And finally, if you're a Tomb Raider fan, there are some really good discounts across the whole series on Steam right now, but there's an even better deal happening on Epic Games, because until May 28th, you can grab Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered starring Lara Croft at 100% off and keep it permanently. So if you've been wanting to revisit those classic Lara Croft adventures or experience them for the first time in a more polished version, this is honestly a deal that's really hard to ignore. Thanks for watching, and I really appreciate all the support lately. If you found something worth picking up, make sure to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel grow. We're already getting really close to 11,000 subscribers, which honestly feels kind of crazy, so thank you all for being here. And if you don't want to miss the next Steam deals, stay tuned, because there are always more coming. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.